Today is a glorious day. Today is a joyous day. The prophecies of the Hebrew Bible have been fulfilled. Our salvation has been revealed. The stone has been rolled away, and the tomb is empty. Jesus Christ, the Son of God, our Savior, our Redeemer, has risen from the dead. Oh, what a sight that must have been for Mary Magdalene. Oh, what a sight that must have been for Simon Peter, who saw the linen wrappings in the tomb and who saw the cloth that had been placed on Jesus' head, not with the wrappings, but rolled up. Oh, what a sight that must have been for the other disciple who outran Simon Peter and reached the tomb first, who saw the wrappings and wouldn't go in. He wouldn't go in, not until Simon Peter had. And when he did go in, he saw what Mary Magdalene had seen and what Simon Peter had seen. Jesus wasn't there. Jesus' body wasn't there. The tomb was empty. Jesus' body, which had been there, which Joseph of Arimathea, who was a disciple of Jesus, had asked Pontius Pilate for, and which Pilate had commanded would be given to him, which Joseph had taken and wrapped in clean linen cloth, which Joseph had laid in the new tomb, which had been hewn out of rock, in which he had rolled a large stone against the door of. Jesus' body was gone. This was not what Mary Magdalene had expected to find. Jesus' body should have been in the tomb. Can you imagine her shock, her confusion? It's really no wonder that she was distraught, that she was weeping outside of the tomb. In John chapter 20, verse 13, she tells the two angels in white that are sitting in the tomb, one where Jesus' head had been and the other where his feet had been, "They have taken away my Lord, and I do not know where they have laid him." This was not what Simon Peter and the other disciple expected to find. Can you imagine the shock that Simon Peter must have felt? The fear that the other disciple had felt when he reached the tomb and saw nothing, just linens. This wasn't what they anticipated. They weren't prepared for this. The empty tomb challenged all of their expectations and all of their assumptions. Mary Magdalene had witnessed Jesus' death on the cross. There was no doubt that Jesus had suffered and that Jesus had died. There was no doubt his body had been placed in the tomb. But the tomb was now empty. In Matthew's account, the experience is so unsettling. There is a great earthquake, and an angel with an appearance like lightning and clothing white as snow that descends from heaven and is seen by Mary Magdalene and the other Mary. It was so unsettling that the guards at the tomb shook. They became like dead men. Every preconceived notion of what would happen to Jesus after his death was shattered. The other disciple knew what all of this meant. He saw and believed. The gospel tells us that he saw, but what he saw was nothing, just linens, just the cloth rolled up. And he believed. He believed. Without seeing Jesus, he believed. He believed that Jesus had conquered the grave. He believed that Jesus had triumphed over death. Jesus was resurrected. Jesus had predicted his death and resurrection. But there's a difference between someone saying something and then it really happening, isn't there? Jesus' resurrection changed everything, not just for Mary Magdalene or Simon Peter or the other disciple. It changed everything for all of humanity, but especially for all those who believe. Sin was defeated. Jesus was the Messiah. Jesus is the Messiah. As believers, as disciples of Christ, today reminds us that death does not have the final say. Death is not the end of our story, but the beginning of a new chapter. The empty tomb is not a source of bewilderment for us as it was for those who stood outside of it. It doesn't signify uncertainty. Instead, it provides us with comfort and with hope. Like the other disciple, we believe. We don't need to see Jesus in the flesh or to have him appear before us to believe that he lives. That doesn't mean that we don't see him in the actions of others when we experience the unexpected or face challenges, or hear his voice when we need to the most, when we experience loss or disappointment or grief. But we don't need to see the empty tomb to know what we know in our hearts and our minds, even if the empty tomb is beyond our comprehension or it tests our faith. Jesus' resurrection happened in the only way that it could have, and the only way that made sense. It was shocking because it needed to be. Would we have believed it otherwise? The empty tomb is a reminder of God's love for us and God's power. God is great all the time. Indeed. And today, on this glorious, on this joyous Easter Sunday, Jesus is risen. For you, for me, for us. He is risen